Welcome. Welcome, everyone. So everyone has a seat, almost. Also, welcome to our online audience. Thank you so much for dialing in today. My name is Lisa, and I'm part of the Women in Fintech subcommittee of the Singapore Fintech Association. So thank you, everyone, for coming in today. I know it's only getting started to come back in person, to put that into your schedule. We really, really appreciate it that you made the time. Thank you so, so much. So I'm just guiding you kind of into the session. We have a lot more coming up. We have a lot more sessions coming up, a lot more moderators coming up. And without further ado, I would actually like to hand over the word to Janice, who is the chair of the subcommittee, who is unfortunately not going to be able to make it today. So she pre-recorded a video for us. So I would like to share that with you today. Enjoy.
Hi everybody, a very good afternoon. I'm zooming in and sending my very warm greetings from the lovely city of Zurich. Welcome everyone who joins us today in person in Singapore, as well as those who are joining me online from around the world. It is with great pleasure to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us today as we launch our inaugural flagship event organized by the Women in Fintech subcommittee of the Singapore Fintech Association. Now, as part of SFA's mission to increase regional collaboration, we are pleased to announce that our event is also supported by our regional partners, and they are the Fintech Association of Hong Kong, the Fintech Association of Malaysia, as well as the 100 Women in Finance. My name is Janice Koh, and it has been a great honor for me to lead this subcommittee, and together with the SFA Exco and my other subcom members, our aim is to bring together a strong community of female leaders and create impact that will benefit the fintech industry as a whole. Now, when our subcommittee was elected late last year, we asked ourselves, what would we like the women in fintech community to be? And our vision is to become the professional network for women in fintech, supported by our goals of connecting, encouraging, and empowering those in our community. And the mission is to be able to help to provide a platform that inspires, empowers, as well as mentor women in the fintech space. The intent is really to support women in fintech in every aspect that they will be able to lean in to this community for advice, for ideas, and for support. And of course, this has to be a team effort because when we come together, we can do more. And here, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce my amazing team members of the subcommittee. Now, first up, we have Shivani, who is the head of partnerships at Thought Machine. And today, we are able to launch this flagship initiative. She is basically the brainchild behind it. Her expertise spans across product management and in the payment space. She's also very passionate on mentoring and coaching women, particularly young women looking to venture into fintech. Next, we have Yili, who's currently the Chief Revenue Officer at Asia Verified. Yili has been very active in contributing to fintech community, where she has been actively participating in forums and events, in sharing her experience and knowledge. Now next, we have Lisa, who's leading the business management for Vestra. Lisa has been instrumental in making extraordinary contributions to the fintech industry, and she was also one of the winners who won the category of Fintech Leader Under 30 during the Singapore Fintech Awards in 2020. And we also have Carrie, who's currently the Senior Advisor of Ant Group. I always call Carrie our new kid on the block then, as she has just moved to Singapore with her family at that time. Now, her level of enthusiasm in contributing to the fintech industry is further cemented by her active involvement with two other subcommittees within the Singapore Fintech Association. Now, last but not the least, for myself, I was running my own company focusing on digital transformation and capital raising for fintech startups. And currently, I am with McKinsey & Company, leading our McKinsey Center for CEO Excellence, aiming to help CEOs to maximize their potential in this very complex changing business environment. Now, putting us together, Here we are, 5 individual women who are looking to become the influencers for this community. We came from 5 different nations, which represents a diversity of cultures and experiences. And we have 5 voices, which brings in different perspectives. Now we came together sharing a common vision, and together we are committed to make a difference in the APAC FinTech community. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn the page to Shivani, who will be taking us through today's event and bringing live the mission of the subcom in creating the platform that shines a spotlight on inspiring women leaders. And not only that, it is also to celebrate their journey of starting up and applauding them for their resilience in riding through the challenges and struggles they faced. With that, over to you, Shivani.
Sorry, Janice, it's still me. I'm going to introduce Shivani in just a bit, so bear with us. Thanks, Janice, for this wonderful speech and for this wonderful introduction of our little subcommittee. As mentioned, so it's going to be Shivani, Ili, and myself of the subcom who are present today, but you can always reach out to all, the 5 of us online as well, either via Slack, LinkedIn. We are pretty well connected. So by now, I'm very honored to introduce Shut Up, who you obviously already know, the president of the SFA, who also would like to say a few words. Thanks, Shut Up.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I may be huffing a bit, but that's to do with me running from Marina Bay Sands just to be in time here, because my last session at the IPOS week we are having ended at 4 p.m. It was supposed to end at 4, but it ended at 4:02 p.m. And then I had to look for the car, which I realized that even if I have the fastest car in the world, I will not be able to make it to the car park and then back here. So I took the fastest transport available, which our government is promoting, MRT, public transport. And then I ran from Talukayar to here. So, and
you managed to pull the T-shirt.
Thanks to Shivani. Another ask was, make sure don't come in a white shirt, which I always generally wear. So I had to make sure I change into the T-shirt as well. It's a nice T-shirt, I can say. It's very comfy. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the design as well. First of all, a very, very huge thanks to all of you to be here to support this amazing initiative that Shivani and the Women in Fintech team, subcom team, have been leading. This is an absolute first for us, I'll be very honest. Absolute first for us in multiple ways. I wouldn't go on and say, why did we create the Women in Fintech subcommittee? We all know there is a reason. Women are stronger in what they do, wiser than men to a lot of extent. So we needed their support to help us guide along our other subcommittees as well. So that was the main reason. So Janice, as you heard over earlier, when we were elected as a current exco last year, one of the things that we wanted to do was to look at how best we can touch multiple segments of the industry. Because as you know, FinTech, we are quite varied, right? We have payments, we have remittances, we have InvestTech, InsurTech, digital financing, so many different subcommittees that we have formed up. But we also needed this glue to bind us together across the multiple segments as well. So, of course, ESG, Green and Sustainable Subcommittee, definitely comes into picture, which was already there. We rejuvenated it. But Women in Fintech Subcom was one of the key pillars on which, we saw that there is a huge, I would say, support, not just for the current generation of tech founders, but also to inspire the next generation, where we are supporting one of the most important 4 pillars, which is growing the FinTech talent pool. So with the support of the Women in Fintech Subcommittee, of course, the warriors are here, the leaders. They have come up with this program, She Starts Up. And I'll tell you one more story. At one of our networking events back in July, our own Chief Operating Officer, CEO Ruben, who's very familiar with most of you here, he's in Melbourne enjoying his steaks, I think, right now. Yeah, 6:30, so yeah, most likely dinner time. He actually wore that T-shirt to that event because he was trying to promote. I'm sure he was not running out of T-shirts. And some of us noticed it, and I think it was a very good eye-opener to us that this, this brand or the marketing campaign that you've created with the team, it's something very striking, and it really, touches at a very core aspect of the whole, balanced growth of the ecosystem, which is involving everyone, giving everyone the equal opportunity in whatever we do. But I'll be very, very careful and honest here. I was very, very clear right in the beginning also. There is no concept of, trying to create additional opportunity for anyone here. Everyone is equal, in fact, better as far as I can see. I've had more female bosses than male bosses, I'll be honest. And generally, the female bosses are fiercer for me, have been fiercer for me. Some of them have been very nice also, if in case they're listening. So, so I'll be, this is what happens when you run after like a whole day event. Thanks to Shivani and the persistence that you have shown, and to Janice and the team, I think we are at a stage where we can launch something which is very meaningful, which is not just an event that you're here for the nice food and drinks, but it's also something which is the true beginning for a much bigger, I would say, initiative or a program that we're launching as we go along for the next year ahead. There'll be events, there'll be initiatives, there'll be programs that will be tied to She Starts Up, no pressure. I'm sure the team is ready to do that. But today is the launch event of something very big. So congratulations to all of you in being here to support us on this major initiative. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you, Shadab. You made it, and pretty good speech, I must say. So thank you. Well, thank you, all of you, for coming in. And I know this is a Tuesday evening. Most of you would be still looking for the better half of the week, which is going to be hectic. So how do we make this evening different? Are we going to have a same evening where we discuss a great problem and then we go back home and we forget about it? Not really. We are not up for that. This is about what we expect from you is equal participation as we discuss problems and we work towards what actions we can take. But more thoughtfully, when we were putting this together, we were very clear in our minds that we want to take a strategic shift in how we act around the most discussed, a highly relevant topic of diversity and inclusion, and that includes gender biases and gaps. But I think it's time, and everyone should agree, that we want to move away from discussions and get into action. We have seen a lot of mentorship for years and years and generations, but there's time that we go from mentorship to sponsorship for these problems. And thank you, Alex, and the Standard Chartered Ventures team for being our first and launch sponsors. We really, really appreciate your visionary attitude and the leadership and for having our back. So thank you for that. Now, huge round of applause, please. What we also wanted to make sure that gender biases problems are huge and can be seen in multiple cohorts of users who face this problem. Could we solve for every cohort in just one go? Not really. So what we thought that for the launch, we would stick to one cohort that was entrepreneurs. And when we were shaping this, we started to drill into data, and this is what it looked like, right? So talking the story, fundraising bias at a glance. All female teams, as of 2021, raised 25% less than all male teams. Teams with minority members raised even lesser. And let's not even get to the point where it's all female teams with minority. They continue to raise the least in all demographics. When we were looking into the average time spent by VCs on the founder decks, we were looking into sections, and then we were looking into where does the VC time go into. When it came to all female teams, the team slide of those founder decks, the investors spent 130% more time in that deck for all female teams compared to all male teams, and 157% more time compared to mixed gender teams. Well, we have added scrutiny, great attention, decent amount of meetings as well, I would say, in parallel, but this is what the figure looks like from 2019 and 2020, right? All female teams continue to raise less. So there is a problem, and not all problem is about diversity and inclusion. I'm not going to make that cry. That's not what this is about. But there is a problem. If we delve deeper, there is some good news as well. Well, all female teams raised less than 500K in 2020, but with COVID getting better, maybe the virus impacted the mindsets better. In 2021, the female teams raised close to 1.5 million. What you also see is a good and a positive and a negative is mixed gender teams raised more, but all female teams continue to raise less. Something that I want to end on a positive note is we have seen a 600% increase in how much the all-women teams raised in 2020 compared to 2021 in comparison with all male teams. So that's a good way to go. And that's where She Starts Up was about. Like, yes, great to have founders, great to have entrepreneurs, but there is gap, and there is a gap that needs to be read in, that needs to be dealt in, and we make problems and we solve and act towards it. So this platform today is actually taking a bold problem statement on the stage and figuring out how as an ecosystem we tackle this together. It cannot be all about biases, issues on the VC ecosystem. It cannot be about the left out, the diversity and inclusion problems on the founder side. As an ecosystem together is what we attempt today to solve and move further in this journey of She Starts Up. Mind it, it's still the launch. We have a long way to go, but this is where we are getting started. With an objective for today's launch was we get in founders, she founders on the stage. We look at them, we look at their company. We have VCs here, we have great founders and great audiences today here. But we discuss the fundraising gap and we enable a platform where we solve for this gap, right? Our values are C3I. One is connect the emerging she fintech founders to the VC ecosystem. Commit to not just support, but also empower the she founders and she VCs with our network. Celebrate their journey, but not just successes, also their struggles, right? And last but not the least, inspire many other aspiring women, men alike founders and investors of the future. On that note, this is what the program looks like. I think we are slightly tight on schedule, but we'll try to make it right. We have a fantastic line of a fireside chat with Alex Manson. We do have a panel discussion with she founders, but before that, we have a spotlight session where we will let the founders introduce themselves because we thought it was important that women founders need not be introduced any longer. So take the stage, get your spotlight, and talk about yourself. And we'll enter into the Q&A segment with the VCs and the audience later, and then we'll close the network. We have some good food, thanks to SC Ventures again, but we'll get there. With this, I am going to invite Alex on stage, who is a veteran banker turned VC. He's a name which needs no introduction, so Alex, pardon me if I didn't do enough justice.
Are we sitting? Right.
Yes, we are sitting. We won't leave you with tough questions and not make you sit as well.
Oh, thank you.
So Alex, before we quick start, like just a thought about yourself and this evening.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, thanks Shivani for inviting me and us SC Ventures, by implication. So I'm Alex. I run SC Ventures, which we set up 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago now. And before that, I've been a banker for, I don't want to say how long, but a long time.
30.
30, yeah, thereabout. So some people call me a bit of a reform banker because I'd like to think that there's a bit of a life after banking, but more importantly, the impetus for SC Ventures really came from banking, and it came from the realization within the banking business that clients were asking us to do things which we weren't quite delivering. that we were not quite keeping up with societal expectations of finance, of banking, and that banks, which historically have been audacious, pioneering, and fulfilling a whole bunch of important roles, that banks weren't, had become a little not just risk averse, but very process oriented. So we set out to do what we call rewiring the DNA in banking, which is a little bit about tech and digital enablement when we talk about rewiring, but it's mostly about DNA, which is culture, mindset, and sort of reconcile banking, financial services with societal expectations of it. And here we are.
So let's get started. Alex, please have a seat. And so we have some cool questions, some tough questions, and Alex signed up for everything. So if it doesn't go well, it's on him. No, it will.
Perfect.
Well, to start.
I'm sitting now. Yeah.
And we have water on the side, by the way.
Thank you.
So, to kickstart, I think the first question would be, tell us about one fun fact and one not so fun fact of wearing the VC hat in a fast-growing ecosystem of startups.
So it's mostly fun, and I reflect on I reflect on the journey in VC, corporate VC, SC Ventures, which is a bit of a hybrid between different things, investing, but also incubating, operating some companies, which is a little different from just investing. But I describe it as a bit of a roller coaster with very high emotions in the same day, 3 times a day, and so we could I could get up in the morning with a crisis, a fire drill, and then have an ecstatic moment, later in the day, and then again something goes down. Generally, the fun facts have something to do with seeing someone succeed whom we've backed. Somebody in the room just told me that I made an introduction some time ago. I lost track of it. The project is about to get launched. It's worked. It's fantastic. It's gratifying, and so they're the fun facts. So it's an element of stepping out of the limelight, but somebody whom we're backing is doing well. That's pretty cool. You could say the not so fun facts is the opposite of it, but more to the point. Look, we're backed by a large organization, and the counterintuitive point is people think this corporate antibodies and people don't want innovation and change. That's not true. People want us to succeed. They really are behind us. But sometimes the really well-intended actions can be quite counterproductive. And so the not so fun fact is perhaps the ongoing I shouldn't say struggle, but sort of education and taking people along to explain how the mindsets and reflexes which we've acquired over the years in the large corporate setup may not be that productive in the context of innovation creation and specifically venture creation. So
it looks like transforming people is tougher than transforming
people is tough. It's rewarding when it works, but it's tough.
It's tough. Lovely. Thanks for sharing, Alex. I think we ran through some data, right? And I saw you were looking at it. The data clearly states that there are gaps, like despite decent amount of investor meetings, despite the added time spent by investors on the decks, all women team continue to raise less. And just as a VC, when you hear and when you read these articles targeted at VCs, how do you feel when you come across as these gaps? And what, according to you, are the plausible reasons behind this?
So when we get to the reasons, we're going to be speculating, obviously, and so my speculation is as good as yours or anyone's in this room. But first, a reaction which just jumped at me when I looked at your slide, which I didn't expect to it's just jumped at me now, which is actually there's a really good piece of news on your slide, which is. As you juxtapose old male, old female teams, there's a stark contrast. It's not cool. It's something's wrong, and we can talk about that. But the really good news is how diverse teams have actually raised a lot more. And so, if there's one thing I'd love to change on that graph, there's an element of the first discrepancy. Not cool. But the one thing that really prioritized changing is the difference between diverse teams raising significantly more than all male, respectively all female. They raise more than all female at the moment, but they should all be raising significantly more than all male. So the first thing I do is, so we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion and how, I firmly believe that, diversity is a huge driver in success of, anything we do. And in fact, you could argue it's all about that diversity, sort of putting very different people in the same room, not just gender-wise, but backgrounds, everything, ways of thinking. That is the statistic that jumped at me on your slide, how more diverse teams are better. Why do all female teams struggle more? It's hard for me to talk about it just because I don't see it. I haven't been fundraising myself. I'm not a woman myself. And I can obviously talk about ourselves, which is SC Ventures, and I don't have a good sense. There's stereotypes, right? Maybe different. Women take no for an answer a little faster than a man, and there's an element of having the level of conviction and trust in yourself. Sometimes we say at work, I trust you. Can you trust yourself, please? It's a conversation I have with men and women alike, but more so with women than men. So there's an element of that. There's an element of is the fact that I'm a female team, can that be part of the narrative? Is that actually a competitive differentiation? Could that be a good thing? And how do you brainstorming this with April just now? How do you weed this into the narrative without being demanding or which becomes counterproductive? But the number of explanations for this. Obviously, there's biases on the side of the receiving end. Obviously, there's a number of reasons we can come up with, and you all know. But it's not okay. I get back to the point. Diverse teams should win.
Women don't take no for an answer. We just got that, right? but I mean, in continuation what you were talking, right, there are speculations and then there's experiences, right? So, Alex, if I could ask, as a VC, you do come across as great ideas, great business models, and great individuals, right, who make the team in the end of the day. Do you really feel at some point bias does creep in? Knowingly conscious or unconscious bias?
Sure. Bias creeps in all the time. We all have conscious and unconscious biases, and they're there. Yeah. So yes, they do. There's no way around it. Because we're human beings, and so first, I say first point. So I'm jumping to remediation immediately. First point is being aware of that fact. Right. So I'm aware. I want to be aware of the fact that biases will creep in, and in one way or another. And it's not obviously not just gender. A whole bunch of biases.
Yeah, fair, and thank you for being honest. And I think as a part of continued She Startup initiative, what we would want to target is, with the help of VCs like you and this setup of ecosystem, if you could think, I know it's not a straight answer, it cannot be done over a day or an hour or a minute, but if you could, yes, knowing that you have bias is great, good starting point, but if you could think about how
do I mitigate?
Yeah, how could we lay down frameworks for VCs in general to cut them down?
In my mind, and it's up for debate and discussion. Love to hear some feedback. But in my mind, the framework generically has to be about diverse views in the context of judging, right? So at the receiving end, I want diverse views. We have that debate in the team frequently, which is, guys, please don't stop pitching to me. We should get a collective view, because my view is my view, and obviously if I hate it, maybe it's not going to get done. But that's kind of not the point. If the number of very different people, ideally very very different people, I reinforce that, have to form a view on what we're doing. We have a brain trust, which is it's not a committee; it's the equivalent of our committee for the ventures. The brain trust is we're plagiarizing Roosevelt's and then Pixar's brain trust, which is all about sort of poking holes in something, and venture teams come in with an idea, which typically isn't great, by the way, and then they come out ideally with a better idea on the back of the brain trust meeting. So that's the mindset of it. Having said this, it's a very influential meeting. Because we inform our decisions on the back of these conversations. We have external advisors on it who carry a lot of influence and weight. We have 2 guys, 2 female, members of the Brain Trust. Actually, until very recently, we had 2 women, 1 man. For reference, it's Yin Yen Tan and Claudia Salzberger on the Brain Trust. Don't talk about the guys. They're interesting too, but it's not the point today. And the point is they're diverse views. They're diverse views. People who think differently. That not gender, not neurodiversity, difference of backgrounds, different of perspectives will come up with different views, and that picture is ultimately helpful in forming a view and overcoming whatever biases any individual might have, in my mind.
I think that's a fair start, right? Like not having having a third party, initial frame of reference to look at it is a great start. Thank you, Alex, for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about it, but it's good to know, and we can figure out how can we tap on that brain trust of yours to kind of, nurture She Starts Up in future. I think interesting fact, and I would like to share this with everyone along with you, Alex, is when we were putting together this initiative, we spoke to a great deal of women, great founders, great leaders. I had coffee chats, we had Zoom calls, and they shared some stories, some good, some great, but some scary, some not so good. And they were sharing it over a coffee chat. They were able to share it over an offline format. And the moment I said, here is She Starts Up, let's have you on the platform. Let's empower people at the back of your learnings. Let's share and discuss and act. There was reluctance. People backed out and dropped out in taking tough questions, even though they said they faced biases during fundraising. Alex, what is the message that you would send out to these women who are facing it and still fearing that if they come forward, it will impact their profile, their fundraising?
So first, my message to you is don't take it too personally. It's I appreciate it's a setback, right? You're trying to animate a community, and it's a setback when people tell you things in confidence but are reluctant to come out publicly. I think my message to these women is I understand. I understand. I can say it's safe all I want. It doesn't matter. What matters is whether it is perceived to be safe by the person in question. And if it's not the case, then I understand. And I think that's going to be the case for anything that is difficult to talk about. If it was easy to talk about, we wouldn't be here talking about it, right? And it's no different from other biases, other ceilings. We're ranging from the most common to the most controversial ones. People will talk when they're comfortable talking in the right time for them in their lives and journeys. I think what we can do, and kudos for doing it here, is provide a platform or an environment where it is safe to do this. So make people feel as safe as possible in their own perception so they can come out when the time's right for them.
I think the key word is understanding an environment, and that's lovely. We are going to kind of put it in our thoughts, put it in our backlog, and we're going to work on it. So thank you, Alex. I think another fun fact was I reached out to Alex, said, hey, Alex, I want to do this. We are putting something together with our subco. And I had a good slide to impress an investor to say yes. But he said yes, and he wouldn't allow me to even make a business case. And while that's impressive, some people will call we got lucky. But Alex, let the crowd know. Why yes, and such a quick yes?
Why? Well, first, you were very articulate without the slide. So it's good to have a slide in your back pocket, but sometimes you don't need a slide. It's good to have it. It's your preparation, but it's I got it. See, the genesis of SC Ventures, I described, what I was seeing in the business and why we did what we did. But there was a very important first meeting where we sampled a different kind of diversity. It wasn't gender, but it was diversity still in the room. We had the old accelerator. We had former entrepreneurs. We had bankers. The entrepreneurs were wearing jeans and T-shirts with extra holes in the jeans to make a point, and the bankers were wearing an extra tie that day to make another point. And my point being, these people don't like each other, right? They wouldn't go and hang out together if you don't make them. right? So making them work together is where the magic happens. So we have bankers, we have entrepreneurs, we have technologists, we have designers, we have very, very different backgrounds, and that's where, and it's hard, by the way. It's harder at the beginning, but when done right, when that diversity is channeled right, this is where the magic happens. So the conviction that diversity brings great things is that's inherently what we do. That is inherently what we do. So easy. That was an easy yes in many ways. Right?
Well, we are glad and thank you. By the way, I would like to call out Swati, my dear friend, presenting SFA here. I got a lot of bashing on the slides, so we just heard it from Alex Manson. I could be articulate without the slides, so sparing me some tough time. Yes. So thank you, Alex. I think
thank you for the slide. Yeah.
A lot of bashing for these slides. Believe me.
I'm sure.
Yes. Okay. As I take that home as a compliment, I might put it on my LinkedIn later. I don't know. I think the last one would be, again, if you were to document your journey as a VC, and if it was ever to be penned down in a book, what is the title you would have in mind? Keeping the fact that you were 30 years banker.
Yeah, so I didn't quite expect that question sort of 30 years back. It turns out we're thinking of writing a book, in part because there's an element of preaching and advocacy, which I think, the experience, the journey at SC Ventures sort of could be shared and could be useful to others. So, and we've been thinking of a title for that, but, you have to stay tuned for it. You have to stay tuned for it. I think the title of my own book, going back 30 years, there's been a lot of banking in different parts of the world, different human experiences over time. From the US to Hong Kong to Europe, obviously for some time, etc. And I go back to the concept of DNA in banking, right? Which is obviously the industry I grew up in, and I still think we're part of. And wanting to rewire that DNA in banking is what's been a driver. So that probably described the journey. But 30 years ago, I wouldn't think that way.
Rewiring the DNA of banking. I'm sure there are a lot of bankers out here, so they're going to reach out to you. But we just got to know that SC Ventures is planning to write a book. That's a good takeaway as a part of the first launch. So thank you, Alex, for breaking that to us.
Advance.
And we're going to cap on that.
Promotion, exactly. Yeah.
But thank you for the honest conversation, Alex. I think I'll open up to the audience. If you have a couple of questions, in the interest of time, we'll take two. So first come, first serve. Any questions? There we go.
Hi, I think I'm loud enough so you can hear me across the room. So my name is Yui. I come from a tech company. It was inspiring to hear both of you, so thank you for that. Personally, Alex, what will you do differently to drive diversity and inclusion?
There's an element of more of the same in the sense that diversity and inclusion, I think, is important to us. We practice it. I'd like to think so, and that's not to say it's perfect and we can't do more. I'll get to that in a second. But there's an element of doing more of the same. There is also an element of, hey, I just pulled the numbers on gender diversity specifically because I figured that might come up, I broke it down differently. So our board directors, our core team, our management teams, which is people reporting to the founders and CEOs, and the CEOs, co-CEOs themselves, right? And the number is pretty consistent across all. No matter how we break it down, it's kind of 70-30. Right, we have a little more female directors on boards. We have, but it's marginal. So 70-30. What do I think of this? It's better than the industry, but the industry is not a great benchmark, as we've just talked about for the last few minutes. So what would it take to get to 50-50? Right, and that's a very legitimate question and what we're thinking about, man.
Thank you for the question. There we go. We have another hand.
I realized turning that I've been looking in this direction all the, so I was turning my back on you guys. It's really nothing you did. Yeah. Hi, Fern.
please.
Okay. Hi, Alex. My name's Charlotte Lagagasoma, and I'm at Visa. My question is around your comment around how women take no more easily, and in particular, your thoughts around how they use their networks and build their networks to come at a reapproach to the VCs. How important that is, and the success you've seen with different gender teams approaching you.
It's a fascinating question, right? Is there something in is it genetic? Is it educational? Is it behavioral? Is there something where genuinely I could say women do this more than men, or the other way around? So I'm not even sure that's the case. So I'm realizing I'm using what might sound like a preconceived notion of what women will and will not do. I do think that there's an element of using networks, using platforms, perhaps like this one, using friends in the business, which is different definition, to get the validation and the comfort you need to reassert your own convictions. And the way, the more conviction, the receiving end of many pitches, the more conviction you have, the more you're likely to get there, right? Importantly, we'll smell blood if you don't quite believe in your story, if you don't quite believe you're the right person for your story. That'll show. You will never say this, but I'll come through in your body language, in the tone of your voice, in the way you look at me, etc. So an element of genuinely getting that comfort and that validation of your idea and of yourself, I think a network is usually important for that. Because the more people you talk to, the more people, and frankly, people telling you your idea, it's terrible, that's helpful too. Right, because it gives you reasons to think about it, and when somebody pokes a hole in your story, well, you can come up with solutions to the holes and try and plug them on the back. So any feedback is relevant, but getting that validation, I think, is helpful. I think that applies to absolutely everyone, male, female, entrepreneurs, corporate types, etc. But it's particularly relevant in that context.
Thank you for the question, and I think in the interest of time, we have to, take a no for the questions. But we do have SE Ventures team, we have Harold, we have the bigger team, so feel free to reach out during the networking session. Alex, thank you for the great answers, but taking no for an answer, well, ask the husbands, brothers, and fathers today. Yeah, go. Yes. Oh, lovely, shut up. Good one. Keep representing, I love that.
All right.
Hi, my name is Patrick Huang. I am a co-founder and CEO of one of the speakers here today at Starfish Digital. So you mentioned about diverse teams, and I'm a huge supporter of that. What could we do to help convey the strength and the richness of diverse teams more articulately to investors and clients?
It's a great question. My instinctive answer is showing that it works, because some facts speak for themselves, and diverse teams get better results. As it's a fact that is pretty well established without going to statistics and everything. I think it works. So an element of objectively showing facts, and an element of just talking about it the way we just do today, which is we have the conviction that diversity is a driving factor in our success. That the more diverse teams in our portfolio are the more successful ones, and the ones that have less diversity, be it gender, be it backgrounds, be it people not knowing what they don't know, or not feeling what they don't feel, or not perceiving what they don't perceive, is going to be a handicap, and ultimately a cap on their own ability to perform. So it's a conviction that I've had in business for some time prior to VC and ventures, and I think is proving to be just right. So I think an element of talking about it and backing it up with proof points, as many proof points as we can possibly get.
And I think as a part of She Starts Up, we will be reaching out to founders and investors to continue to research, get more data, and act on data rather than talking on assumptions and biases. So we are going to put an end to lovely chat with Alex. Alex, thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
So before we break into a wonderful panel discussion, as promised, I am not going to introduce the lovely women leaders out here. I'm not going to introduce the founders. This is a quick flashing spotlight session for each one of them. May I please ask Alice to come on stage?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and join us. I typically don't like to have the spotlight on me, but this was a good cause. So thank you to Women in Fintech Subcommittee and SFA and 100 Women in Finance, and of course, She Starts Up and ST Ventures. So I thought it was a good cause just because I want to get to that one day where we no longer had to say female founder, and I'm just a founder, but we're not there yet. So a little bit about myself. I used to be in big corporate as a lawyer in private practice for many years. And about 7 years ago, I started this company with my husband. So I'll talk a lot about the journey of getting there, but quickly I'll just go through the introduction of what we do as a company, and throughout the panel, please feel free to ask questions. So InvestX, founded in 2015, we are essentially a digital securities platform based here in Singapore. Digital securities is another term for security tokens. And we provide the end-to-end services for tokenizing all types of private market assets. And we provide from primary issuance, the technology, the tokenization engine, to the secondary exchange, trading, custody solutions through our licensed custodian, and lifecycle management of private market assets. We focus on the private market assets primarily because there's been very little to almost no innovation in that sector. If you look at the public markets, you've had every significant expansion correlated to technology and innovative structures like ETFs, and trading floors, electronic trading floors, and central depositories. None of that exists in the private markets. So that's why we're focusing on the private markets. We work with issuers and investors to use blockchain technology to tokenize all types of assets. We've tokenized NFTs, we've tokenized, actually with a MAS Fintech grant, we tokenized the Singapore Variable Capital Company, which is a venture capital, or not a venture capital, but a fund structure, umbrella fund structure that has portfolio companies underneath. And what was really interesting, and I highlight some of the issues in the private market sector: lack of transparency, lack of liquidity, lack of access, right? Most of us would never have access to private market assets, real estate, private equity, venture capital. But through tokenization and fractionalize those interests, you're providing access to more people, you're providing a trading option, and because I didn't think I was busy enough, we created a sister project to provide liquidity on these platforms called IKESwap. I'm not here to talk about IKESwap, but anyone who's interested in AMMs or automated market makers, that's a solution for security tokens modeled after Uniswap. I've just said a bunch of words that many people are like, what is she talking about? Anyway, if anyone has any idea, want to talk about that, please speak to me after. But I'm here to talk about InvestX. And what we're trying to do is give everyone the capabilities, or every investment firm, the capabilities of becoming Web3 compatible, to transact with digital currencies, to interact with dApps that are built on these systems. And this is our whole model, is to bring Web2 companies Web3 compatible. So that's about it for me, and I'm happy to chat more later on the panel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I would pass the mic to Sally now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sally Clark. I'm going to explain in under 2 minutes, as I've been asked to do, what it is that Starfish Digital does, why we're exciting, what problem we're solving. So without any further ado, Starfish Digital. We make corporate banking connectivity easy. Now, I want you to think about yourself in terms of how you deal with, you receive information as a retail banking customer. You can see all your payments, all your balances, all your transactions at the touch of a button and in real time. You don't have to wait. Now, think of yourself as a chief financial officer in a major multinational corporation. You may have to wait days or even weeks to receive that same data, to know your company's financial position, to know and understand what is your liquidity position, to actually run reports for your board. You can't do it in real time today. Why? This is the question. Why can't you do that today? Because you can't do that today because the banks themselves, the corporate banks themselves, have legacy systems. They have different ways of exchanging data. They have files which have to be uploaded, downloaded. Corporates, the CFO, their teams, they have to go onto online banking platforms, download PDF attachments. There's all sorts of challenges they have within corporate banking connectivity. What's more, they have manual processes, quite a lot of them. So one leading bank shared with us that they have over 6 million transaction errors a year, and that is just in Asia. 6 million transaction errors a year, and that is just in Asia, and they have to employ over 300 people to solve that problem. So how do we help? Well, Starfish Digital, we provide a unique universal adapter. This universal adapter unlocks corporate banking data and automates customer relationships. So we provide a digital channel between the actual corporate bank and the CFO, the treasury systems. So we can take data and we can deliver it to wherever it needs to go. Our value is digitally connecting any corporate to any bank to any system. We're a financial connectivity platform in a market which we calculate to be a total addressable market of around $34 billion US. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. I think a great solution. We will come back to you. Now we invite Lynette.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lynette here. I'm from SC Ventures. I'm Asian, and I'm female, as you can tell. If anyone has grown up in a household in Asia and you're female, you do know that you always live in a household where they tell you there's a no-waste policy. My mom taught me from young that if I want my face scrubbed, you go get a bowl of papaya skin, because they're really efficient for removing the keratin on your face. That's how I got to love sustainability. Well, I'm in a sustainability venture. It's called HUMA. I'm supported by SCV. And what does HUMA do? It helps businesses of all sizes collect, aggregate their ESG data, and lead them to actionable outcome. So if I look at sustainability, we take into account E, S, and G, environment, social, and governance, because they are topics that we can look into, we can measure. And it's not that there's a big problem in the space because there's a lack of reliable ESG data to help people make clear, confident decisions. And all these problems is created from a source, which is the businesses. It's not that they deliberately want to do so. It is a complicated space. They have to decide what, when, how to collect the ESG data. They have to know when and what to prioritize and how to prioritize, and need to optimize this data to achieve good outcome. So what does HUMA do? Number one, we start by simplifying the ESG data collection and categorizing process for customers. So we make it so easy, we actually decided to put 12 globally accepted frameworks in one platform. So that helps companies. We listen to them, we hear them tell us, hey, can we have a lightweight version for the SMEs? So we created one that's much more cost efficient and much more lightweight so that companies can use them. And now large corporates can onboard their supply chain, their suppliers onto HUMA platform too. Number two, from all the data we collect, what do? We use our algorithms and we help them to identify their ESG disclosure and performance gap. Now they know what to do next. So this is really super helpful for companies of all sizes. Number three, which is in the pipeline, we'll actually map the suppliers to their vendors. So now you can have a good overview of your portfolio, of your supply chain, of what's going on. And also, remembering that now you have all your ESG data in place, you're on top of the game. So why not leverage on SC and HUMA so that you can reach out to our ecosystem of solution partners that can help you fill up your gaps in the ESG space, and also to reach out to green financing. So all in all, what I've designed is something that helps you to measure, manage, analyze, and action on your ESG journey. It's a very simple solution that could help a lot of businesses. We know that there are 13 million companies and 3 million financiers and investors. They are struggling with the lack of reliable and trustworthy ESG data. So HUMA is here. We simplified the whole collection process and we ease the ecosystem to give you actionable outcomes. So what we are looking for right here by standing here is I'd like to seek industry nuance strategic partners and investors so that we can help HUMA and a lot of businesses to go into the global state of the ESG play. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll quickly break into the panel discussion. Can we have mics for the speakers as well? See, we lift our own chairs. Perfect.
Oh, that's the end. Go on. So on. Happy anywhere.
There we go. Perfect. I hope you are still tuned in because this is where we'll get to the other side of the problem, right? And we'll get to the other side of the opportunity because where there is a problem, there is always an opportunity. So thank you, ladies, for signing up and being bold and coming forward. We know about you, now we know about your company, but what we want to know is your journey as a founder more. I'll quickly break into a question starting with Alice. If you could live the life of another founder or entrepreneur for a day, who would that be?
Yeah, I thought about this question. Should I take his mic? Sure. Yeah, so I thought about this question, and I was actually struggling to find a female fintech founder. And that kind of in itself was an issue just because it highlighted how they're maybe not getting enough attention, and all we're hearing in the media is things that are people that are sensationalized, you know, Elon Musk
Meta. And so I chose Jessica Livingston. I don't know how many of you know Y Combinator. It's one of the first seed stage accelerators founded out of Silicon Valley. And it's because of something that, she said at a female founders conference. She said, I don't give, and excuse my language, I don't give a shit about page views. I care about supporting female founders. And she is putting her money where her mouth is by founding Y Combinator, or co-founding it with her husband, which I thought was also worth a mention because similar experiences, and also just really putting action to the words.
Great. How about you, Lynette? Who would that lucky founder be?
When I look at people I admire, no offense to diversity in age or gender, I just look at them and I tell them, when I grow up, I want to be like you. So rather than looking at typical roles, I look into the qualities that they have. And it's not unusual because I'm pretty much a personable person. So the role models in my life tend to have this virtues that I really admire. They have resilience, they are strategic thinkers, they are caring, they are patient, and they're always willing to give back to the society. So I look more at the qualities than a particular person. And I found that, I'm very lucky, I found that in the ecosystem of women that I know in this space. One of them is Uma from VMware. Some of you guys might know her because she's quite famous in the tech space. She is the co-founder of Lean in Singapore. I've seen how she managed and struggled when she first started it. In year one, she has 2,000 women members. I saw how she scheduled her nap times so that she could actually mentor them, talk to them. And I'm one of her friends that I've gotten really good advice and tips and scoldings from her too. Another one is Yin Yin that you guys know. She has always been there for me. She shows that she cares, she guides me. She has no qualms telling me when I'm wrong. And she's also another woman that has embodied all the virtues that I've put up earlier. Another interesting one is in the venture space. Her name is Shirley Wong. She sold her own tech business, made a lot of money out of it, but she didn't rest on her laurels. She's with SMU. She does the big incubator. She incubates from students to startups. She puts in her own money for the ventures, and very patient. She heard me whinge and whine about my journey and gave me good advice and told me, like, stop whining and just move on. So really appreciate this woman. And last but not least, which is most related in the fintech space, is this lady called Yana. She's in her Series B fundraising. She runs Myro, which is a startup in MarTech. Always a kind word, always encouraging advice. And in fact, for this event, she took it and reposted on She Loves Data, where she is the founder of She Loves Data in Singapore chapter. Yeah, so these are my role models, and I don't think it stops there. And I still say when I grow up, I want to be like them.
It's very sweet. And Sally, how about you?
For my background, I admire many, many women, and but the two CEOs that I'm very grateful to have been part of the organizations that I've worked in. I've been in fintech for 20 years, which I think is a bit different to you two ladies. And so I started off working with a company called SunGuard. The CEO there, Sir Chris Conde, he sold his company to SunGuard. He built up that part of the company, Devon, to 300 million. He actually took SunGuard private for 11 billion with a group of private equity guys out in New York, and then took it public again. Secondly, Anna Mazzoni and also Marina Guccio, I worked with at Market. I joined Market as when it was starting out, and worked very closely with some terrific people there, Mike Rushmore, and also Lance Ugler, the CEO.
Amazing set of role models, right? It's for sure, like starting up is not easy, right? And there are moments when you second guess what you're going to do. And there could be so many reasons. Maybe, Lynette, I'll start with you. Like, could you share your key challenges and the fears or the moments where you thought this will get the better of me, and also how you really overcame them to be here where you're today.
There's a lot of questions in one question. I'm having an ADHD moment now. I have a big fear of disappointing people who believe in me. Yeah, so that's the thing, because I think I get very enthusiastic. I love the things I want to do. I only do things that I love and want to do. So people who has given me their time, their energy, their resource, and efforts, I always have a very big fear of disappointing them. So whenever I start on any ventures, I'm a serial entrepreneur, by the way. Since 19, I bought and sold businesses and do quite a fair bit of nonsense, which my mom definitely didn't approve. But the key thing is I'm always very concerned about disappointing the people that I care about their opinion and has invested their time, efforts, and resource in me. How do I deal with it? It's a long learning process. One thing is I've reached out to a strong community, which given me really good encouragement and support. That includes SC folks and my good friends in the ecosystem. They are usually subject matter experts or who have gone down this journey, so they really know what I'm whinging about. One key thing is I believe in measuring and management, so I identify the fears that I'm having. I face them. I actually paid money to get a personal life coach and a career coach to guide me along the way and reach out to subject matter experts because I felt that I needed it, and that filled my own gaps in my own journey. And I learned to recognize the communication style of many others and accept it and to modify myself so that people can actually understand what I'm talking about. And the last bit is to constantly upgrade myself. God knows how many courses I've taken throughout the last 10 years. I think I've taken more courses than my own kids, basically. So they always look at me and wonder why. And one recent thing I learned about is to do a lot of exercise as much as possible. That increases my energy level. That's how I cope.
And that's how you continue to be a serial entrepreneur, right?
Yes, something that I get excited about.
Thank you, Leonard. And I think Alice, just keeping the questions short then in that case is, key fears, how did you overcome those moments? If you could share with us, because we do have fears as well.
For sure. So yeah, this is my first startup. As I mentioned earlier, I was in private practice for 10 years. So it was I was quite fearful of failing, quite fearful of losing my identity, because I think many of you might have similar experiences. When you're with a big firm, big brand, immediately you get that recognition. So I was with Skadden Arps, one of the largest M&A firms. I was with DLA Piper, one of the global largest by number law firms in the world. And everyone just by hearing those names knew, okay, well, she went to law school, she must have done well, got a big firm job. Then I had to start a whole new thing with no brand recognition. No one knew who I was, what our company did, and that fear was terrifying. The other fear for me was failing my parents, because they had sacrificed so much to uproot our whole family, to move to the US, and they gave up so much. So of course, the journey was to become a lawyer, to become a doctor, and be more successful, right? But to become an entrepreneur is terrifying. You're not making money, you're working long hours, there's just so much unknown, and that was fearful.
We all can relate to it, I'm sure. So no surprises there. I think instead of repeating just the questions, Sally, we are saving best questions for you. But Lynette, if you could quickly take your thoughts again, just correlating with what, I was kind of talking with Alex as well, that, 2021 has been a banner year for venture capital funding, right? Like, I think globally it was close to 600 billion, and post-pandemic economies are recovering. So we see a brighter side of the funding only going to get better. However, we also shared insights where, there are gaps. So just touching on your trajectory, how has fundraising experience been for you? And if that's one thing you really deeply enjoy working with the VC ecosystem, what that was?
Fundraising is marathon, right? Isn't it? For everyone here. I think it's interesting. There are some things I would say that I wish I learned a little bit earlier. One of the areas I learned from this VC ecosystem is that every investor has a particular context or concern, and it needs to be addressed. So the fun part is when all the investors are sitting in a room and you're trying to address everybody at one go, because they all have different agenda. Whether is it, especially when they're looking at your startup, is it going to be a strategic long-term investment that they're looking at, or is it a quick financial, or is it a hybrid model they're looking into? It's things that we actually need to know when we step in, and it becomes sharper and clearer in 2021, I guess. Maybe because I started this journey a lot more this year. Then that's when I find out these are things that I need to know better. I need to understand. I need to find out the personas and how to angle and tailor, and also to address that. Then it becomes a little bit easier. I'll say for myself, I think sustainability projects are a little bit harder, like what we discussed earlier. One of the key things is it is actually very much what you consider purpose-focused. So it's quite hard when you're actually looking into a purpose-focused sustainability initiative, but I'm very glad that I have received the patience, the diversity in SAV venture teams, where we have male and female, able to deliver that patience for me and to listen to what's going on. And what they don't understand from my gibberish, I actually was very thankful when two of them have reached out to me and say, let's have a chat so I can know a little bit more about what you're doing so I can understand it a little bit further. I think this is particularly useful when you have panels like that in the VC community. And for me to actually learn to be more succinct in my communication too at the same time.
Those are great insights, and I think a lot of aspirational founders can really take a note of what you shared. There was a stark data that said, all diverse teams raising better than all women team. How does that translate, according to you, into this gender bias issue that we are trying? Like, is all women teams still looked down, or how do you perceive it?
How do you consider a woman that might have more male characteristics or a male that has more female characteristics?
You're getting all the tough ones, by the way.
I thought it was only one question. It's two questions, and it's a question in question.
Your answers are calling for
Just try to give your hand.
Give me a break. Well, gender bias exists both in males and females. So I won't say it's a male perspective that creates that gender bias, or is a female perspective for that matter. Well, it is true, though, in Morningstar, they did say, statistically, males tend to interrupt people more often in boardrooms than females, all right? But that's besides the point. I think, in general, I don't think it's truly fully about gender. Mixed diversity is important. I don't think it's just gender. There's also age, there's culture, there's also from different parts of the world. And it's great when diversity comes together. And the figures actually shows that when you have a mixed diversity, we do raise more funds. And it's not just about fundraising. Don't forget, when we run a venture, fundraising is one part of it. We want it to run as a business. It has to be sustainable. It has to grow. It has to scale. And that requires a skill set of both male or female, or a male with more female qualities, or a female with more male qualities. Gosh, that's a mouthful. One good thing that I think that's very important is listening skills and comprehending and actually talking to one another. In fact, it was my daughter who taught me that. So the bias about age teaching somebody else comes true. She gave me 2 books. She gave me the book called The Advice Trap. Because when we give advice, we actually think that we're better than the other. And she gave me another book, You're Not Listening. Yeah. Yeah. That's my family for you. I think in terms of tackling gender biasness in this space is a lot more about let's improve our communication skills with one another. That could actually ease a lot of the problems in the space, rather than focusing on just gender.
Absolutely. I think having that positive mindset ahead is great. And I think while it's about business models, where it's about practical data growth, there is a personal aspect of it, and that's also a tough part. So Sally, coming to the tough question again, is retrospectively, what is one thing you would have done differently in your journey, and what is one thing you would never change going back?
So they're done differently? Do I have a lot of time? No. Okay. So one thing I'd have done differently. 2014, I won the Incubator Fund Award from LaSalle. And that award was, the college was like fantastic and, offices and all this good stuff. And my plan that I pitched was about doing an online arts platform so built the tech, did all this great stuff, but I was focusing on Central Asian art, and that's where I messed up. What I didn't know, having never worked in the art space before, that there was a reason why, even though I got the price point right, the team, we did all this good stuff, the reason why people weren't focusing on selling Central Asian art was because of graft in the actual Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and it's very difficult to actually export the art well. Right? So, and I discovered that when we put a big exhibition on at Iron with the Kazakhstan embassy, Uzbekistan embassy, the art was all here. And then the artist said, well, you can't, even though people would purchase the art, they couldn't buy it there, and then it had to go back to Uzbekistan and then come out again because of problems of it never, the art actually being counted as it went out, and any difference they might have to pay a little fee for. So that was a big lesson. That was not a great highlight in my career. Something I wouldn't do differently was when I was at SunGard, I'd been there for 7 years as global head of marketing and product marketing, and I was approached to join this little startup called Market, and interviewing there, and I was like, well, it's a bit crazy. I've got this big job. I'm going to go and be a marketing person of one. Why would I want to do that? And I had 21 interviews at Market. 21 interviews. I was interviewed by the CEO, Lance Ugler, twice. I went to New York. I went out to White Plains outside of New York. So it was a hell of an interview process. And anyway, I got the job, and I was there at Market, and it was a fabulous and amazing time. The women there were great, like working with really smart people, very diverse group of people as well. So we had, when we talk about diversity, everyone was from like mathematicians from Russia, you had, French, Italian, every single nationality on the planet was at that company. And it was and that's really where I got that entrepreneur bug.
I was one of the first investors.
Small world.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, and talking about business models, they had a very simple business model, and I'll get to that a bit later in my second question, in that what they did is they took all the actual credit derivative, because there was no single price for credit derivatives. Credit derivatives, $1.something trillion market. They took all those data feeds, and they sold them back to the banks. They gave them the data, and they came up with one single market price. Keep it simple.
I hope the answer does not inspire people to take 21 rounds of interviews, because the millennials and Gen Z won't cope up. So Sally, great sharing. Alice, how about you? One thing that you would not change, and one thing that you would definitely do differently?
I kind of alluded to this earlier. Don't work with your husband. No, I'm just joking. So actually, I love and hate working with my husband at the same time. Why? Because your interests are always aligned. There's no question about that. We may disagree on strategies, all of that, but we know it's in the best interest of the company. But it does add additional dimensions to a very complicated, personal life already. So that's one. But I wanted to also say the other area is everyone says you don't want to be first in market. Whatever you're building, whatever you're creating, you don't want to be first in the market. And we have, at certain times, been the first in the market, the first to tokenize the VCC, a blockchain native structure. It's never been done before. There's no precedence out there. There's no one I can tap into for knowledge. We're actually literally doing this for the first time, pioneering it, and it's hard. And would I change that? No, because it's exciting. I love what I do. I wake up and I get excited about learning all the new things that I come across, and also kind of helping develop the framework for where this future of finance might be. And I feel very, I guess, proud and excited by the fact that I may have an impact. And one of the things that I've always said is, what's my legacy gonna be? And so this is something I look forward to, and I hope my entire team feels that way, because at a startup, you're not gonna compete with a C. Standard Chartered and the big banks. We're hoping that the people that join us are people that are passionate and driven by what we're creating and building. But it's hard because it's never been done before. And we get questions, we often get questions like, so why do you need blockchain? Why can't you just use, some back-end engine? Well, I say, why do we need email? We could have continued using mail, post and all of that. It's just innovate, continuously innovate. Don't have what we call a Kodak moment, right? Be the first to do something, but forget to continue to innovate. And so this is, I think, one of the things that I feel, and I didn't get to answer the earlier question, because you said, what are your fears and how do you get over that? I think I just try, and this applies to men and women, be realistic with yourself. Don't be in denial. If this product isn't working, move on. You have to be, as a startup, that's what you're good at, right? Being flexible and nimble, and create something that people want, right? So you have to have that product market fit, and we're constantly just innovating, learning new things, and that's what keeps me excited and going.
Thanks for sharing. And one thing about being first, I think, based on my startup journey experiences, and we serve traditional banks, I think one thing that I've learned is you can never be too early to serve your customers, but you have to make sure you're not too late. That's how the business grows, right? So never regret being the first. There's always great learnings. Thank you for sharing. I think we'll take the last question in the interest of time so that everybody can enjoy some networking and food and some tea. Maybe my last question goes to Sally here, is that one takeaway message to all those aspiring women and men founders. Shadab, I'm covering your point. And those aspiring future entrepreneurs, future investors, what's that one message you would want to leave them with today?
What I'm actually going to do is follow on from, I think, your point about innovation, right? And I think I'll leave on a very simplistic message, and hopefully it resonates. Innovation doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be complex. And if I think about a really simple example, think about everyone traveling through airports with luggage. That luggage, everyone traveled like holding things, their arms are hurting. That luggage didn't have wheels. Then someone thought, you know what? We should put wheels on luggage. And it transformed the whole traveling. It transformed it completely, a whole travel industry. The fact that you simply put wheels on luggage. So when you're thinking about starting up your journey, and as a founder, again, don't overcomplex. If you look at processes, if you look at how things, going back to market with its credit derivatives, if you look at processes and world and how it operates around you, try and find something simple to correct, put wheels on something, find something simple to correct and go for that. Complexity is not always the best way forwards.
That's a great advice, and it works well for women as well. So I think in terms of just moving on, open to questions, starting with SE Ventures, the VCs in the room. Any special questions from the team? And yeah.
Hi, my name is Felicia. I'm from AWS. I think I want to address the question to Sally. I think you mentioned that you came from the world's biggest fintech
Yeah. So my question is, how do you think your previous roles in this global fintech company differs from your current role in Starfish Digital?
Thank you, Felicia. So one of the things that's really different is you have to do everything yourself in many, many ways, right? When you're a global head of marketing, you actually speak to the great people globally, and you get stuff done, and you quite often arrive at a conference like Cybos or something else like that, and it's all set up. When you're at a startup, you better pack the box yourself. You better make sure there's sellotape. You better make sure there's post-it notes. You have to roll your sleeves up. I think also, but one of the really positive things is I personally have great co-founders, and I'm blessed by having them. Patrick Huang here in front of me. He was CTO at Asia, Deutsche Bank for Asia Pac, and Dan, who I know is listening in on the WebEx. He was at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and we're a good team. So I think that is just working very tightly with the team day in, day out, and having 24/7 practically. And having that really good relationship is very important, and is different.
That's great. Thank you, Sally. And I think opening the platform to also our amazing online audience, because we are also streaming this live. Are there any questions? Yep, my colleague Ili will take the mic.
Hi everyone, there's no question, but we have a fan for Lynette here. So someone says, Lynette, totally loved your presentation just now. I can very much relate. Yeah, so kudos to Lynette. And we actually have an earlier question for Alex specifically. Not so relevant to this topic, but it's a general question. Alex is always on hand to encourage ideas and always has time to respond. Alex, how do you unwind after such a busy day?
I don't. Lynette mentioned it, physical exercise, very important. So do a lot of it. I read a lot. I do try and keep interest diverse, but yeah, I'm not sure I unwind after the day actually. but to your point, thanks for asking. But other than what I do about unwinding, I think you're alluding to another aspect which I think is really important. So I wanted to repeat it, which is making space for being approachable and encouraging ideas. And it's it can be perceived as a waste of time. Sometimes it's annoying in a team, whereas are we spending the time in the right place, etc. But responding to every single email, even if it's a lot of emails will not go anywhere. It's making that space and time is an integral part of what we do.
Yep. Thanks, Alex. We have one more question from the online audience. This is to the female entrepreneurs on the stage. How has been the journey for your entrepreneur life till date?
Do we know who's asking the question?
Raghuvir, I hope I pronounce it correctly.
So what was the question again, sorry?
So how has been your journey like as an entrepreneur?
Sure, I'll take that. It's full of ups and downs. I have moments where I question myself, am I doing the right thing? And then other moments of elation where I'm just like, this is where I need to be. For sure, I know this is not going to be my last startup. So if that gives you any inclination to where I stand, definitely fundraising takes a lot of effort. And if everyone who had great ideas could just have unlimited resources, we would all be in a happier place. But the other thing that I know for startup founders is the one thing that you will know is that there will be unforeseen circumstances. So the one thing that you know, there will always be unforeseen circumstances. So be prepared for that.
Thank you for the question. And we have a question there first, so we'll come to you later.
Hi, Mo Harvey. I'm founder of Tribe Fintech, so female-founded fintech based in Singapore. We've just closed a pre-seed round of about 2 million, but yet we know that female-founded fintechs in particular go through a much steeper death valley between the first 18 months. So, just anecdotally from our perspective, we haven't spoken to any VCs yet. We're only raising from angels. And finding serious female fintech angels was like looking for unicorns in itself. So what we came across over the last couple of months was that there was this huge number of senior male bankers, lawyers, PEs, VCs, all of these guys who were willing to take punts. And yet we were speaking to the senior females in the equivalent sectors, they weren't angel investing. So I think before we even talk about the VC world, there is this gap in angel investing at a female stage, particularly for fintechs. It's a much, much harder thing to find. And I know that there are some angel clubs starting, but the tickets are quite small. And we know that for fintechs, we need much larger tickets to really get going. So it's just a personal experience from Southeast Asia at the moment. We're very lucky. We've got some super cool people involved. But I think it's even before we have that conversation about VCs, pre-seed for female-founded companies is absolutely critical, and it means larger tickets.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
And we are definitely going to exchange cards because that's definitely on She Starts Up's backlog. So we are going to act on that. Thank you. We have a question from our tiny little alumni right there. So go, shoot. And we'll take this as the last question. But during the networking, feel free to approach all of us.
Hi everyone, I'm Angeline. I am an aspiring a woman in fintech. Oh my god, everyone's turning back. I know I'm the block between you and food over there, but I'll keep this short. I have a question to address to Alice. So in your segment just now, you actually mentioned that you navigated through many firsts since 2015, so digital assets weren't like that prominent, and you navigated through like all the uncertainty. So my question is, how were you able to navigate, or rather find an endpoint to each goal that you had through all these uncertainties? Everything was so new, so yeah, I was wondering like how you set the precedent yourself with your co-founder husband. Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, I don't think it's...
before Alice answer the question, I just want everybody to give a round of applause to Angeline. She's still a student, yeah. So she's a university student and she's inspired by our fintech community, and she's here today. This is exactly what we are doing and why this event is meaningful.
Spot on.
Woohoo! Alice, over to you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that question. Yeah, I definitely difficult times where I do question myself, and is this the right strategy, because it hasn't been proven. So one of the question was, what would you have done differently? Would I have liked to be second or third, so there's someone else to follow? Yeah, maybe in those instances, but I think other than just my co-founder, but the team that you work with who are just as equally passionate about discovering new processes or new ways of doing things is what drives us, I think, all the founders every day to continue to pursue. And also just really interesting. I find myself going down I went down the I guess you can call it the blockchain rabbit hole back in 2017. I discovered this whole area because of, I will admit, because of ICOs. It was a new form of fundraising, and I wanted to understand the technology behind it and realize how we can incorporate the technology in traditional finance. So I started reading up. I started going to all of the crypto conferences, talking about the gender disparity. There is a lack of women in fintech. There's even a stronger lack of women in crypto and blockchain, right? So part of the reason I think there are fewer, I guess, angel investors or VCs in the fintech space is because they didn't come out of these fintechs, because normally the process is you exit your company and you start VC investing and things like that. So there hasn't been that cycle yet, I feel like, and hopefully with more of us up here, we'll start doing more of that, and we'll see that to change in the future, I hope.
That's great. Can we have a huge round of applause for our founders, please? With this, we will wind up the panel discussion now, and before that ends, I must thank Alex and SE Ventures team. Alex, as a part of takeaway for our founders, as I said, this is not a discussion, this is about action. Alex is going to have 60 minutes of Ask Me Anytime session with each of the founders, and let's see where that goes. I'm going to follow up on both sides. But yes, this is not a platform, this is not where we end, this is where we start today. So thank you for being a part of this journey. Appreciate Alex and really, really call for leadership, call for openness, call for great communication so that we can tackle problems in a strategic way. And I look forward to chatting to every one of you. Please do interact, reach out, and network after. Small blocker between the food and us is calling and giving a round of applause for Swati, who has been taking it on behalf of Singapore Fintech Association, our program lead, and somebody without whom, and also Maria, where oh, the red t-shirts are confusing me. There we go. Without these two wonderful ladies, thank you, we wouldn't have been here because we all have our regular jobs. We are all maxed out, and pulling this together in this format wouldn't have been possible. So kudos, Maria. Swati will now do the closing, quickly share takeaways, and then we all can just dive into food and great discussions. Thank you, and see you.
But you stay on stage.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. For this segment, I would like to have the Rockstar Women in FinTech members, Ely and Lisa, on stage as well.
Come over.
So we stand between you and coffee, so I will try to keep this short and sweet. SFA and the Women in FinTech Subcom would like to thank some very important contributors for making this initiative possible. A big thank you to all of you in the audience and those watching us live on Zoom for joining us today. We would like to thank the team at SC Ventures for all your support and sponsorship. And a big thanks to Alex Manson. This would not have been possible without you, your support and your guidance, and your belief in us. A special shout out to our rockstar speakers, women founders, Lynette, Sally, and Alice. Thank you for sharing your startup journey with us, for showing that there is nothing we women can't do or achieve, and for inspiring us. We would also like to thank our partners, Fintech Association of Hong Kong, Fintech Association of Malaysia, and 100 Women in Fintech for their support and collaboration. Last but not the least, a big hug and high five to Ruben, COO of SFA, who's not here with us today. He's in Australia, eating steak, as Shadab mentioned. And of course to you, Shadab, for empowering us and for showing absolute faith in our cause and our capabilities. I would also like to take this opportunity to quickly highlight 4 key takeaways from this session, which I'm sure you all will resonate with. 1, while it may be a misconception that women are not as good with numbers and technology as men, it is a fact that female founders care about profitability as much, if not more, than male founders. 2, diversity and inclusion in entrepreneurship create innovation. Only when you allow diversity, new ideas can be generated. 3, the future workforce needs more female role models within all sectors, all countries, and in all positions. I would like to invite members of the audience, if you would like to share your learnings or your reactions or your feedback from this session, please feel free to raise your hand and do so. Anybody who wants to?
I can probably talk without a microphone. I think it was a fantastic panel that you put together, very sort of diverse backgrounds that each of the founders had. Oh, sorry. A really diverse background from each of the founders. Lynette with, as a serial entrepreneur and startup founder, Alice with your sort of personal story and, fears of starting a startup. I think a lot of us have felt that before. And then Sally as well, going from big corporate, and Alice as well, big corporate into startup is quite a challenge. Personally for me, I work with my sister. She's my co-founder, so I feel, some of what you were saying. But I think what came out as well was how important community and networking is, and events like these bring people together, like-minded, people that are facing the same challenges. That it's really important to share our problems, brainstorm solutions, and also create the network and ecosystem that supports that. So thanks very much for putting this together.
Thank you. So before we wrap up, can we have one final round of applause for all our contributors, and especially for these trailblazers from the Women in Fintech subcommittee who have put their heart and soul into this event today. I guess that brings us to the end of this session, but please do stay back for some refreshments. Yes, and photos as well, because that's a woman thing, right? Thank you, and have a great evening, everyone.